Welcome back to another live stream. Today, I am going to tackle one of the most common subjects. I've tackled this before. We've had discussions on this before live, and I've also done a lot of videos on safety here in Mexico. Today, the reason why I'm doing this live stream, actually, this is not my normal Ask Me Anything About Mexico live stream, is that one of the things that I noticed, and welcome everybody. I'd like to say welcome Jetlag, Cindy K, Gringos Are Us, Lisa, Sedona, Texas Refugee, Lisa, and Flying GSP, Edith, Cindy, you're all here. I usually try to get more people in. We've got about 14 people here, so I'll start off. But one of the reasons why I'm doing this live stream is because I know I do a lot of safety videos, and I talk about certain incidents that happened just recently. I think my last one was about Highway 57 coming this way, also about Laredo. And another thing is that two travelers in Mexico did a video on how they were coming back to the United States, I guess, to sell their car or something. And they went through Laredo and they got stopped by the cops and ended up having to pay what we call a mordida. And they told their experience, and I basically they asked if they could post it on my Facebook group, and they wanted to make people aware. And I said, sure. One of the comments that I made right away is, look, you didn't do anything wrong. That area that they were talking about, that they were in, it's very famous for people pulling people over, police pulling you over. And a lot of times they'll either pull you over to try to ask you for money, or and then they start to say, well, you know, the fine's this, we're going to take your license plates, we're going to take your license, and hey, profe, welcome. And then you kind of get forced into kind of paying this 2,000 pesos. The problem is, if you still, and I know most of the time I usually say, just take the ticket, just take the ticket. And most people will tell you to take the ticket. In this case, in this area, what normally happens after you refuse to pay the bribe, sometimes, not all the times, bandits show up, the police run away, oh my God, and leave you there to deal with the people that are going to rob you. And the thing is that conveniently you're stopped on the side of the road and blocked in and you can't get out. Well, conveniently the police did, but you can't. So I basically told them that you don't have any, you didn't do anything wrong. Don't, I know in most cases, pay the ticket. That brought up some discussion, inside their comments, basically. And also, I also noticed some comments, for example, on my safety videos, where one individual got very paranoid and it's like, oh my God, I'm going to travel there now, I'm scared. And one of the things that I want to do with these videos is I want to make something very clear. The problem that we have here in Mexico when we talk about basically, is Mexico dangerous? You kind of get these two types of stories. You have a lot of these YouTubers that'll tell you, oh my God, they're people that tell you that Mexico's dangerous and the cartels are everywhere. They're just trying to scare you, blah, 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 blah. And, unless you're going to be involved in cartels, it's really safe. I feel safe here. I've heard all the excuses. Then in the Facebook groups, I've been through that route 50 million times. Nothing's ever happened. Other excuses of, it's safe. It's safer in Mexico where I live than where I lived in the United States. In the United States, there's a bunch of mass shootings. And in Mexico, I don't have to worry about that. And so it's safe. And usually, when I've done videos on this, is Mexico dangerous? A lot of times I get what happens is that what I get when I do that is people don't even look at the video. They just put, is Mexico dangerous? And it sparks a big, long conversation. And people start arguing back and forth. And then you'll get people that say, the murder rate here in Mexico is worse than, and I'm not here to talk about, when I say, is Mexico dangerous? I'm going to tell you something. Is Mexico dangerous? I'm going to tell you the truth. Yes, it's dangerous. So is the United States. So is Canada. So is New Zealand, for that fact. So is Europe. Everywhere is dangerous. Anybody that sits there and tries to convince you that a place isn't dangerous, that it's totally safe, is trying to sell you a dream. They're trying to tell you what basically, they're trying to tell you that everything's going to be okay. And one of the things that I kind of tell everybody, that what that does is it builds a false sense of security, okay? And what happens is you say, oh, well, it's safe. I've convinced myself it's safe. So then what ends up happening is you go through, and I'm going to give some true accounts of what has happened. 2 expats, two Americans and foreigners. And they go about driving down the road because it's safe. YouTubers told me it was safe. Everybody told me it was safe. And then they don't pay attention, or they don't do those little safety things. So is Mexico dangerous? Yes, it is. Can you travel through Mexico safely? Yes, you can. Another thing that a lot of my videos spur is everybody wants the perfect route. When I say, Laredo's having problems, Tamaulipas having problems, and just recently Eagle Pass had some problems, because I always say to divert if you can through Eagle Pass. Then what I usually get is, what's the perfect route? I want the perfect route that I'm going to be safe, and I'm assured that I'm going to be safe. Well, there is no perfect route, and I'm here to tell you that there's no perfect route. As a matter of fact, someone asked me in one of the comments on my Facebook, they gave me Google Maps and says, "This is a better route?" And actually, it's not a better route, because it was going right straight through Sinaloa, where there's a lot of roadblocks, cartel roadblocks, and stuff like that. Actually, to be honest with you, I would probably tell you go to the place that I told you not to go through versus that route. What I'm here to do today is to try to tell everybody that, most YouTubers will tell you, those guys that say Mexico is dangerous, they're alarmists, they're fear mongers, they're trying to scare you from coming to Mexico. I'm not trying to scare you from coming to Mexico. I want to ensure that you stay safe. And those YouTubers that are telling you that stuff, they're doing you a disservice, okay? And now, I always say that I'm not an expert, and I'm not an expert in everything, but I come from a 30-year security background, law enforcement background. I've been trained by the Secret Service. I've worked with the Secret Service. I worked with the State Department, diplomatic security. I've done judicial protection, not to mention the fact that I was in the law enforcement field for 30 years. So a lot of this stuff, for me, comes naturally to me. So what I'm trying to do is educate everybody. When I do these videos, is not necessarily, if I tell you, don't go through there because it's really bad. But when I did my last video about Highway 57, I even said, these reports haven't been confirmed, but given the history of the highway, be careful, okay? So I think the secret here is not being paranoid to the point where you don't go at all, or if you have other means. For example, I do know some people that said, you know what, we're going to fly. We're not going to risk it. That's probably your best bet to mitigate the risk. Fly. That's the best bet. But if you have to travel through these areas, know the areas that are bad. Know when you can't go there, or know where you can go and where you can't go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down into several things tonight, and then give everybody a chance to ask questions. But the first thing I'm going to break it down into is I'm going to tell you real case scenarios where individuals were told, well, actually one case scenario, I actually warned the individual not to go through that place, but the individual he was traveling with told him, not to worry. I've been through that place 20 million times. I've lived here 15 years and I've never have a problem through that route. And then we're going to go over another article that was posted by two travelers in Mexico about a caravan. And we're going to discuss what they, and out of respect, we're going to talk, we can learn from what they did. And out of respect, several people were injured. They had to bring them back to the United States. And these were Americans, part of them, some of them were Americans. And they got caught in the middle of a cartel gun battle. And it's what I always talk about, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, these individuals made some mistakes, and we're going to talk about it. And could they have made their trip safer? Yes, they could have. But one of the things that we're going to illustrate is one of the things they did was, let's travel in a caravan. So what happened? They traveled in a caravan thinking that they were safe. They built a false sense of security. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into a couple of tips of what you can do to mitigate a lot of the risk, okay? And I'm here to tell you that there is no place in the world that's safe. What you need to do, you know what? Safety, what I always tell everybody is Mexico dangerous? Well, that's up to you to make the decision on whether it's dangerous or not. It's your actions that are going to dictate whether it becomes a danger to you or not. It's not about whether there's 50 million cartels, or there's not about the murder rate here in Mexico or not in Mexico, or the murder rate over in the United States was worse. The statistics probably say that if you're a foreigner here in Mexico, you're probably less likely to be the victim of a crime than in your home country. That's a true statistic. So all of these statistics sound great, and they can either scare the heck out of you because they're talking about violent cartels and murders and kidnappings, or they can make you feel too safe where you do things that you shouldn't have done in the first place and that get you in trouble, or you meet somewhere in the middle where you're aware of these things, and then you can take that middle ground, there's the right and the left, and you can meet in the middle so that you can come up with a plan to make sure that you can safely travel wherever you need to go. Now, I will say there are parts of Mexico you just don't want to travel through, period. But I get it. Highway 57 is a major corridor into the United States. Some people can't avoid it. The only other option, especially if you're in the central part of Mexico, is going to the West Coast. You go to the West Coast, that's traveling through Sinaloa. It's probably traveling through a worse place where you have Highway 57, where there's an area where it's bad. If you're aware of that area, you know where that area is, you can travel safety. This other thing about caravans, you can travel safely in a caravan if you guys communicate. But at the same time, a caravan can be to your detriment. So just the word caravan, let's travel together, is not the solution. It's an overall solution to ensuring that you'll be safe here in Mexico, that you'll stay safe here in Mexico. And all of these people and these YouTubers that tell you that, you know, Mexico, I have never had a problem and it's safe. And people on Facebook that will argue, I've had, I don't know how many arguments. As a matter of fact, even on this two travelers in Mexico, someone said that my professional experience means nothing here in Mexico. Well, I have 30 years of security experience. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. It doesn't matter if I'm here in Mexico. It doesn't matter if I'm here in the United States. I do the same things when I'm back in the United States. I do that. We travel extensively. I've been to Colombia. I've been to Argentina. I've been to Brazil. I lived in Brazil. We travel extensively, my wife and I. And I do the same, both of us do the same things no matter where we go. It doesn't matter whether we're in Mexico, whether we're in Colombia, whether we're in Brazil, whether we're in the United States. We do the same things, always. So that is what makes Mexico safe or dangerous. You're the one that makes Mexico safe by your practices. Because if you lie to yourself and tell yourself that I'm going to be fine. Cartels don't, and I've heard it all. Cartels don't touch Americans, which I'm going to give you a case, an actual case, which happened to an expat. True story. And he actually called me, and I met with him at Starbucks in San Miguel de Allende so he could tell me his story. And I'm going to give you other cases that this stuff actually does happen. The other thing is, I had access to a lot of reports, and I can't share them with you, but I saw what actually happens here in Mexico, and it's a lot more than what people say, because people are speaking from their experience. One of the things I also talk about on the road to Mexico, it's a great resource. I always tell you, check Facebook pages, check Código Rojos in the different places. But you also got to remember, on the road to Mexico, I'll give you an example of a post. A guy came all the way down from Canada. He actually did a big, long post detailing his trip and how safe it was and how he got to, I think it was San Miguel or Querétaro. He got to Querétaro safe. And you wouldn't believe some of the comments that people like, you're kidding me, right? You went through this place, you went through that place, and you mean to tell me that you're lucky to be alive? That's what people were telling him. And the problem is other people could interpret that post as, oh, everything's fine. And so, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because the person that's saying you're lucky to be alive, well, maybe he was being a little bit too overly cautious. And the other person that was saying, hey, it's just perfectly safe. So you've got to remember, no place is really safe. And I'm going to give you some basic travel tips, okay? And that's going to be the end of my live stream. And then you can ask me anything else that you want to ask about Mexico. I'll get around to the questions. I think I already have one here. And what we're going to do is we're first going to go over several scenarios that are true stories. This actually happened. I have a friend, retiree, San Miguel de Allende, went back to Dallas, Texas. They were traveling back to Dallas, Texas, was going to sell their car. Both him and another friend were going to sell the car. And they said, let's caravan together. And they followed each other. Both individuals were in their 70s. They were not Mexican Americans. They were of Caucasian. They were white. They were not anything, I've heard a lot of arguments that, well, it just happens to Hispanics and that type of thing. And they were traveling down 57 and they were going to go. And he actually contacted me and said, what's the best route? And at that time, there was a lot of stuff going on in Laredo, which it seems like it's still going on. And I told him, look, just avoid Laredo, go through Eagle Pass. And I said, that's probably your best bet. And he said, okay. Well, I guess he got with his friend, and his friend says, no, Eagle Pass is 2 hours out of our way. I've been through Eagle Pass. You know what? No, we're going to go through Laredo. I've been living here 5, 6, 7 years, and I've been this route 20 million times, and nothing's ever happened to me. So, of course, my friend, who had just moved to San Miguel de Allende, said, okay, I'll trust you because you traveled this route a bunch of times. I'll follow you. Well, they're on 57, and there's a pileup, a traffic pileup, and Google Maps tells them that they can take another route. And so they stop, go by the side of the road and say, should we take this route? The guy says, oh, I've taken that route before. We can take that route. It's not a dangerous route. It's okay. So they started going on their route, the second route. And he said that Google ended up telling them to go there was another accident. So Google told them, hey, you know what? You need to go down this other route. And the other guy says, you know what? I haven't been down that other route, but how bad can it be? Because it's in the same area of the other route. And instead of going towards Eagle Pass, they ended up going towards this town called Miguel Alemán. Miguel Alemán happens to be a main cartel I mean, it's controlled by you don't go through Miguel Alemán. And actually, the second story I'm going to give you happened in Miguel Alemán. He said that he started going, beautiful scenery. All of a sudden, he started seeing abandoned buildings. And he was like, wow, there's like these towns with nobody in them. And he didn't think anything of it until about 4 or 5 pickup trucks full of guys with AK-47s pulled up next to him and his friend and told them to pull over. And they boxed them in. So they pulled over. And they pulled over into an abandoned gas station. They told them to pull over into the abandoned gas station, the parking lot of the abandoned gas station. They pulled over into the parking lot of the abandoned gas station. And when they did that, the people ordered them down at gunpoint, grabbed them, pushed them around, took them behind the gas station, put guns to their heads, told them to get on their knees. And one of the individuals was he said he didn't understand, and they didn't speak Spanish, but all he could understand was matale, matale. He remembers that the word matar was kill or mata. And he says, all I remember is they kept yelling that they were killing, something about killing. And he said that they were there for about, he said, what seemed to be an eternity, and a Suburban pulled up. He said, and an individual got out, full of jewelry, got out and started yelling at the guys and telling them, what's going on. The guy starts yelling at the guys. One of the guys that says, matale, kept on saying to kill, kill. He actually grabbed the other individuals and told them to go take him out somewhere out to the other side of the road. And he spoke English, very broken English. And he asked them what they were doing there. And they were like, we're going to Dallas and we didn't mean to, we're not, And he says, hold on, I got to make a phone call. Made a phone call. And then he grabbed both of them. He's one at a time, took them to their cars. And he says, you're lucky. Have a good day. And go that way and follow my people. And they actually made it to Miguel Alemán. He says, you won't have any more problem. And they made it to Miguel Alemán, and they crossed, and they went on to Dallas. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a true story that actually happened to 2 individuals. Now, yes, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. They took the attitude that they were safe and they were fine, and how bad could it be? And here's the thing, the cartel let them go, but let me tell you, 2 70-year-old men that were taken down at gunpoint with AK-47s, put to their head, taken behind a gas station and told they were going to die is not a very good experience, even though they were able to get away from it. And I actually told him, I said, you know why that man made a phone call, don't you? And he says, well, why? I don't know. He said he had to make a phone call. I said, the reason why he had to make a phone call was because he was calling the boss, his boss. He was probably a boss because the way he took command of the situation. And when he took command of the conversation, he actually had to call his boss to let them go. I said, probably you are very lucky they let you go. And that is a true story. And actually, he told me that his friend was still in Dallas. He was scared to tell his wife what happened. He's shocked and in total shock. And that's going to be a situation that individual has to live with for the rest of their life, when they could have just gone through Eagle Pass. Or they could have just stayed in traffic on the main route, when they ended up taking Google Maps and they got a false sense of security. And the other individual, my friend, trusted the first individual because that individual had been living here in Mexico for some time. So these are things that actually happen. For anybody to tell you that, oh, they don't touch Americans, oh, they don't, no. And yes, they weren't killed, but I don't think anybody here wants to experience being pulled out of their car at AK-47s at gunpoint. Not even me, that's been in law enforcement forever, and I've had guns pointed at me and everything else. Nobody wants to live through that experience. And then I'm going to give you another experience. There were individuals that decided to travel in a caravan. This made national news here. It made national news in Mexico, and it also made the actual article that's posted in my Facebook group was The Hill. I guess it made news in the United States on one of the social media platforms. But there was individuals, it was a mixture of Mexican nationals and Americans that decided that they were going to travel in a caravan. And you know what? They decided that they were going to go through a place called Roma, Texas, and cross in Miguel Alemán. And they were going towards, I think, Saltillo. I don't remember the whole thing. But when they also decided that they were going to go at 3 o'clock in the morning. They were going to get a good head start. Okay. Well, first of all, their mistake was to go through Miguel Alemán. Okay. That's not an area that you want to cross, period. I mean, you either cross a McAllen, McAllen can get bad, but it's either McAllen, Laredo, or Eagle Pass. So they decided they were going to go through Miguel Alemán, but they decided they were in a caravan. What bad can happen? Well, there was two factions of the cartel that were fighting each other in Miguel Alemán, of the Gulf Cartel, and they ended up in the middle of the gunfight, literally in the middle of the gunfight. I'm not kidding you. The people shooting from each side. They turned around. They were able to turn around. They went back to the United States. They were received by CBP. Several people had actually suffered gunshot wounds because they were stuck in the middle of, their cars were hit with bullets. And I think 2 or 3 people were actually hospitalized. Nobody died, luckily. But this is something that happened to American citizens. So to say that, oh, the cartel's just going to stop shooting at each other because Americans are coming through. And the third I'm going to give you is the individuals that went to Matamoros, and they were stopped at a narcotics checkpoint, not a narcotics, a cartel checkpoint, and they were kidnapped, and 2 people ended up dead. And those were all Americans. And it was supposedly a mistake, but it's a very serious mistake by the cartel, don't you think? 2 Americans died. So to try to build a false sense of security. Now, I know I'm saying all these things, and you're probably going to say, you're scaring the heck out of me. I'm scared. Don't be scared. Because what I'm here to tell you is that in all those instances, for example, the Matamoros instance, they shouldn't have been to Matamoros in the first place. And actually, plastic surgery in Mexico, they were coming for plastic surgery. Some people say they look like criminals. We're not going to talk about that. Let's just take their face story for the face value. They were going for plastic surgery in Matamoros. Well, Matamoros is not the best place to go for plastic surgery. There's other places. Actually, there's other places on the border that are more secure that they could have gone to for the plastic surgery. They didn't do their homework. Okay? So even if they were there for criminal purposes, non-criminal purposes, if you want to just take their story for face value, they shouldn't have been in Matamoros. They should have gone to another place such as, or gone into the Monterrey, which is very well known for plastic surgery. You can get it reportedly. Or they could have gone, there's another place called Progreso, Mexico, which is on the other side of Donna, Texas, which you basically just cross the bridge and you're there. And it's pretty cordoned off from any violence. So that's a mistake they made. And then the people that crossed in Roma, Texas, you don't cross into Miguel Alemán. That's just number one. Number two, you don't cross at 3 o'clock in the morning when the cartels are usually active. They're usually active at night. And they built a false sense of security because they were in a caravan. Now, I am going to say something. A caravan can be beneficial because you're strength in numbers. And also, if 4 or 5 trucks, If you scatter, it's harder for them to stop somebody. Number one. Number two, so you have to stay a decent enough distance away from each other to scatter. And the other thing is communications, because you have a person in the back and a person in the front that needs to be communicating with everybody. The best way to travel in a caravan is with two-way radios or with some type of app where you can do a two-way radio type of thing. That way, everybody's aware of what's going on. So if somebody comes from the back or somebody comes from the front or something's going on in the front, then you guys can turn around. So caravanning can be a risk, but it can also be to your benefit. Then the other situation that I was saying is that they decided to, the first situation that I gave about my friend from San Miguel de Allende, they decided that they also had a false sense of security. It wasn't really my friend, it was the other individual. And he had traveled through these routes, at least till they got to the part where they had to turn off towards Miguel Alemán. And he had confidence that nothing was going to happen because he had been through the other route, which crossed in Rio Grande City probably. And they got a false sense of security. And they ended up taking Google Maps as advice instead of sticking in traffic, like I said. So these are actual instances that these things actually do happen in Mexico. And anybody that tells you that they don't happen, they're trying, you need to understand. First of all, most YouTubers, 90% of YouTubers are trying to get your business. They're trying to get your views. They're trying to get you to buy something. They're trying to get you to pay them for something. And if it's not pay them for something, it's for views, so they can get the monetizing. So who wants to say Mexico is dangerous? Who wants to tell the truth? Okay? Nobody wants to tell you that Mexico is dangerous. Okay? I'm here to tell you because I have no vested interest. I have no financial interest. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Everything that I give you is for free. And what I'm trying to tell you is I'm telling you the truth. But at the same time, I'm telling you that, look, I've been here in Mexico 5.5 years. Okay? I also grew up on the border. I've traveled through Mexico probably the last 20 or 30 years of my life. Okay? I mean, I used to cross the border when the border was safe. We used to go party in Mexico, in Reynosa, Mexico, when I was 18 years old. So has anything ever happened to me in Mexico? No. I've never had an issue. I've never had a problem. But you also got to take into consideration when I tell you that I've never had an issue, I've never had a problem, I also don't go to places I shouldn't be going to. I take off at times that I know that I should be taking off at. I check the news. I check Facebook groups. And I'm not talking about regular Facebook groups. I'm talking about Mexican Facebook groups that are actually set up. I have one that's a Facebook group, Monterey to McAllen. And they actually say, hey, there was a roadblock, blah, 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 mile 55. And I'm not, they even say where the police are, where the police roadblocks are. And those are the things that I do, my wife and I do, that we know that keeps us safe. We've even been followed before. Now, were we truly being followed? We don't know, but all the characteristics are there. We went into a town one time, come to find out it's a big time cartel town, and we were followed, and we were able to pick that up right away. It was a pueblo mágico, believe it or not. And we picked it up right away, and we left. We left as soon as possible. So those are the things that you can do. It's just about being aware. It's not about the argument of whether it's safe or whether it's dangerous or whether you feel safe or you feel dangerous. The only way to feel safe is to do the things that you need to do and get to where you need to get to go, or get to where you're going. And then when you get to where you're going, everything went out fine. Everything worked. That's when you feel safe. Not before, not during, after. That's when you feel safe. That's when you feel that proud that you did a good job. And the other issue that I'm here to talk to you about is when we talk about police stopping you. All right. In that area of Laredo, there's also an area outside of Sinaloa, in the state of Sinaloa, on one of the major highways, where the police like to set up checkpoints, and they like to start asking if you have large amounts of money, and literally they stop everybody with foreign plates. I'm not kidding you, and that's the one on the highway on the west coast, and then they start, and a lot of people just give them money before they even ask, thinking that I'm being set up. A lot of times, if you don't ask, they just let you go through. A lot of people, when they start asking, you have large amounts of money. You got to remember, you're in Sinaloa. These people are trying to curtail drug trafficking, or if they're not trying to curtail drug trafficking, they're trying to make money off the drug traffickers. So if you have a large amount of money, then maybe they might ask you for money. But normally, if you're a lot of times in that particular checkpoint, if you're nice, polite, they let you through. The other thing in Nuevo Laredo, on the Nuevo Laredo route, the other thing that I was noticing also is that these YouTubers do these videos where I'm going to teach you how to drive safely through Mexico. And it's like maybe their first trip through Mexico and they're driving and they take you with them. And one of the videos that I was seeing is one of the guys says, oh, just make sure you're not speeding, because when I was going in, there was a lot of people coming north, and all these people with foreign plates were being stopped by the cops. And I usually say, go with the flow of traffic. 99% of the time, I've even passed police with running radar at well over the speed limit, and they haven't stopped me. Normally, these are speed traps where they'll stop you and they'll ask you for money in a roundabout way. And the dangers in the areas close to the border, or at this, the one in Sinaloa is not, doesn't have a reputation, but the one in right outside of Nuevo Laredo has a reputation, is that they'll start saying you were speeding. You know what? It's a 2,000 peso fine. You can pay the fine here. And then if you start to do the typical, you know what, give me the ticket, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to downtown and I'll pay the fine, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's really inconvenient. We're going to have to take your driver's license. And, it's really hard, we could pay the fine right here. In those instances, you pretty much have to fork out the 2,000 pesos. And the reason why I'm saying that, and I know people are going to say, don't fall into corruption. Don't pay them their corruption money, their corrupt money. Don't. And I've always said that. Take the ticket. But here's the thing. If you keep on insisting on taking the ticket and they're kind of like, well, let me go back to my police car, blah, 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 something's fishy. And it's not uncommon. And there's videos on YouTube. I'm going to tell you right now. There's a video on YouTube where the police stopped a guy for speeding and the bandits showed up and the police ran away. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. I've actually seen videos on YouTube. So, I'd have to find the video again, but I also know from information from expats that travel through that area that have been stopped. Two travelers in Mexico experienced exactly that. They didn't experience the robbery, thank God. And the other thing that people need to understand about crime here in Mexico is that, for example, what happened to my friend in San Miguel de Allende? Do you think they went to the cops? No, they were just happy to get back to the United States. They didn't call the cops. They didn't call the federal police. So did that incident go reported? No, it didn't. Most people who get robbed here in Mexico, most Mexican nationals, what is the first thing the cartel will tell you after they rob you? We got your driver's license. We know where your family lives, and we'll kill them all if you go to the police. So what happens? What happens is that these crimes go unreported. So anybody that tells you that, oh, I don't know of an expat that's ever gotten in a problem. No, expats have been totally safe. You know what? There have been Americans that have been kidnapped. There have been Americans that have disappeared. And that's the bottom line. And this is not something that I'm taking from some secret documents. This is from the news. Okay, people disappear. There's individuals that are still been looking for their dual, and there's a lot of dual nationals that are still looking for their family members to this day. I have an aunt that they're actually she's married to my uncle, and my aunt had a cousin who went to Mexico. They decided to take off. And actually, this was at a period of time when it wasn't as dangerous. They decided to come back to the United States. They took off. They went and visited family in Durango, I believe. And her cousin has never been seen again. And it's 15 years later. He disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to them, the whole family. And they were Americans. And that is an aunt of mine. That actually, the person that disappears not related through marriage, my aunt, through marriage to my uncle. So these things do happen. So anybody that tells you that they don't is just giving you a false sense of security. So what can we do? And I'm going on, let's see here, 46 minutes, and I gotta finish up. What can we do? Well, I've already given you a lot of things, a lot of tips. Okay. First, what we can do is make sure you stay on the toll roads. Don't travel at night. And I always say communication is key, because if something does happen, make sure you're always in communication with somebody. Every time we leave, we actually send our live location. We call our in-laws 15 times during our trip to say where we're at. They call us. Not only that, but we check basically different Facebook groups. They're usually called Código, C-O-D-I-G-O. I'm going to type it out. Rojo. And usually if you look it up on Facebook, Código Rojo, Nuevo Laredo, Código Rojo, Reynosa, Código Rojo, Monterrey. They're usually going to be a Facebook group that you can now, everything's in Spanish. Mostly it's local people that are saying, hey, there's a shooting going on right now. They use this Facebook platform to be able to communicate so that everybody, whenever the cartels are fighting, they stay inside their house. So we look up the Código Rojo. We also, but now here's a great thing about Facebook. If you have your Facebook set to English, there'll be a translation on the post. So you'll be able to see, is there anything going on in that area? Now, that's still not a 100% guarantee that something's not going to happen while you're going through there, but you have an idea. Then there's On the Road to Mexico. And now you have to be careful, like I said, because a lot of people will say, I made it through fine. It's totally safe. I've been there through there 50 million times. I even have a friend that out of Ajijic that she even posted her dash cam where they tried to stop her, and she was going through the Columbia Bridge. And so she was lucky enough because she knew and she was alert enough that, hey, these guys are up to no good. And what she ended up doing is she ended up, actually the car in front of them, they stopped the car in front of them. What she did is she jammed it into reverse, her car into reverse. They jammed their car into reverse, and she was able to turn around and luckily get away. But she was very alert. She knew what was going on. She knew these guys were up to something no good. So that is what kept her safe, okay? She got away from the situation before it even became bad. These individuals just gave up. By the time she turned around and she took off at full speed going the wrong way, they gave up. But those are the things that you can, if you're alert, you're not going to fall victim to the crime. For example, on 57, when we talk about, I always say stay with traffic. Now, somebody was saying, well, number one, a lot of people drive too fast or they drive too slow. What I mean by stay with traffic is just don't get isolated. And also, the other person says, if I stay with traffic, if they stop the car in front of me, because one of the things that they do, a lot of times they'll take a semi-truck and the semi-trucks will stop and kind of block traffic, and everybody kind of like stops. And then that's when the bandits come out and try to steal everything, rob everybody that's in the traffic. So you want to keep a distance away so that you can turn around when you see that something's fishy going on and there's two semi-trucks next to each other that aren't passing each other. Those are the things that you need to look for. And you know what? You don't have to be an expert. I'm here to tell you that go with your gut. If you feel something's wrong, there's something wrong. And just assume that it's wrong. Go with your gut. And you know what? You may have to turn around, you may extend your trip another day, but you know in your heart that you're going to be home safe and you're not going to have any issues. So is Mexico dangerous? Yeah. So is the United States. I'm going to leave it at that. So is the United States. So is Canada. So is Europe. So is New Zealand. So, I mean, name me any country and I'm going to tell you. Colombia, Brazil, Argentina. Name me any country and I'm going to tell you it's dangerous. I won't tell you that it's safe because I don't believe in selling people false senses of security. But what I will tell you is, have I been to Colombia? Yeah. Did I make it out fine? And was it everything safe? Yes, it was. Because it was what I did to make sure that I ensured a safe trip and an enjoyable trip to Colombia. And that's the bottom line here. What I want everybody to walk away with is that I want everybody to walk away with is that when I give these warnings, I'm not trying to scare you. I don't want you to be paranoid. Paranoid's on this side, well, it's your right, my left, or whatever. Paranoid's on this side, being too cautious. If you're paranoid, you're not even going to leave your house. Okay? False sense of security is on this side. And that's what's going to get you in trouble. If you take this paranoia and you move it and move it and move it by mitigating risk, and you meet right here, I'm going to tell you, you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. The other thing is you have the odds with you. Thousands of people travel through Nuevo Laredo every day and nothing happens. You just don't want to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You don't want to be one of those individuals. When I did my video and someone basically said, oh, I went through Nuevo Laredo when they were attacking the Mexican consulate, when the cartels, yeah, I saw a bunch of burned up cars, but I was fine. I went through there safely. It's safe. When someone sees burned up cars, there's a problem. It's not safe. They were just lucky that they didn't end up. As a matter of fact, not only that, they were attacking the American consulate because they were upset of a cartel leader that was deported to the United States, and they were actually retaliating against the United States. Can you imagine if they would have, now they were too busy attacking the consulate. Can you imagine if that person with American plates would have been going through an area and they would have seen that person? They would have grabbed them really quick because they were so upset at the United States. So you could end up becoming a target instead of being safe because you're American. So I'm going to go through some of the comments here and also give you time to ask questions. Also on my question sessions, I let you ask anything about Mexico. And let me see here, Texas, I'm broke because my landlord here is charging me gringo price for my apartment. Okay. Let me see here. Profit's coming in from, and I wanted to congratulate one of our viewers here. Angie Hernandez, who's actually coming to us from San Miguel de Allende. And only a couple of months ago, she was actually on her way out and leaving. And congratulations, you finally made it to San Miguel de Allende. We're going to be in San Miguel de Allende pretty soon. We have to go back to our house there to take care of some stuff. And let's see here. Oh, I can attest to the fact that Ernie has a foot a little too heavy. LOL. Yeah, I did lose Gringos R Us a couple of times on the road. So yeah, I have a lead foot because I've gotten used to driving here. Usually when I'm back in the United States, I don't drive as fast. I got used to keeping up with traffic here. Jose Monsi, I live in Tamaulipas, 15 years. People disappear between San Fernando and Ciudad Victoria all the time. Never heard from them again. Be careful. Yes, Jose, and some of those people are actually American citizens. That's the bottom line. It's true. Most of them are dual nationals because they come here to Mexico to visit. They have roots here in Mexico, a lot of them. So they come to Ciudad Victoria, they come to Monterrey, they come to different areas, and or they even go to Reynosa. They have family in Reynosa, and they visit. We even have friends that have family in Reynosa, and they go across the border all the time. But those people are dual nationals. They are American citizens. And things happen. Things have happened to their relatives that are dual nationals. But just because someone's a dual national, and I had this happen to me when I first did my first safety videos, Highway 87, they marked it the highway of death because there was a bunch of disappearances. And a lot of the names had Hispanic surnames, a lot of people that disappeared. And someone had the gall to say, well, there's no indication they were American because they all had Spanish last names. Well, they were American. That's the bottom line. That's why it made national news. So, and it doesn't matter. The cartel doesn't, the people that were in Mexico, in Matamoros, didn't happen to be Hispanic origin. And my friend, who was from San Miguel, wasn't of Hispanic origin. So these things do happen to Americans. Back in 2004, Dad and I were driving on Highway 15D north of Culiacan. We were followed for an hour by a truck with tinted windows. Yeah, you know what? Jet lag 737, that probably, I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you. Back in 2004, there was a lot going on in Mexico. A lot of Mexico was dangerous because of the violence, and a lot of it was random violence. There was a lot. The Mexican president at the time had declared war, probably. And actually, when you see the Narcos series, you find out that the Mexican president that was supposedly really tough on crime and sending the military was really actually in coercion with some of the cartels to help them out, to wipe out the other ones. That's what's been implied in some of the narco series. But that president sent a lot of military assets, tried to get the drug war under control. Supposedly, the U.S. was sending a lot of support to Mexico at that time. And there was a lot going on back in 2004. It's calmed down a lot. It's not as bad as it used to be. It's not 1984 when I was going to high school and we could go across into Reynosa and go to the nightclubs at 18 or 17. But at the same time, it's not 2004 or the mid 2000s is when it was really bad. 2000 to about 2008 or 9 or actually probably when that president left, it's kind of calmed down a little bit. But what I want to leave you guys with, I don't have too much else to say here. And Jay Gomez, hey, thanks for joining in on the conversation. And someone here was saying, hi, Brian, that's where you were there. As a matter of fact, I think you had made this comment a little earlier. Hi, Ernie, my wife and I are relocating to Mazatlán in a few months, planning on crossing in Nogales and taking Route 15D toll road. I can't put the whole, let me see if I can extend this out a little bit so everyone can see it. uh, and 15 toll road, and only travel during the day. Is this recommended? Another route. Actually, Brian, Nogales is probably your best your best bet going through Arizona. 15D is a good route to get to Mazatlan. Here's a thing that I did mention a little earlier. When someone also said the other route, I'm going to respond to them. If I don't respond to you on Facebook right away, I know a lot of people have questions. I do rely on a lot of you guys helping each other out a lot. Like I said in my last live stream, that, you know, this is not a job for me. I don't get up in the morning and do YouTube and answer emails, and this is not a job for me. This is something I do on my part-time. So I try to get to comments as quickly as I can. What I've been doing is using this live stream platform. If I start seeing a lot of questions on a certain subject in my Facebook group, I'll say, hey, you know what? I'll jump on live and I'll answer their questions. One of the things I was talking about, one of the routes was going through Sinaloa, through Mazatlan. Mazatlan is in the state of Sinaloa. Okay, so don't get scared, because you take Sinaloa and drug cartels and you put them in the same sentence, and everybody freaks out. Where you're coming from, Nogales, going down to 15D and getting to Mazatlan, most of the activity in Sinaloa, you're not going to have a lot of problems in Mazatlan. As a matter of fact, Mazatlan is beautiful. I know a lot of people. Actually, Brett Jones, which was here the last stream, I think he's out of town, but he lives in Mazatlan. He'll tell you that it's safe there, it's great there, it's beautiful there. Bill Dallas Lewis, who does a YouTube channel from there, he said a lot of Canadians. That used to be a place at one point before the Americans started finding out the secret of Mazatlan, that a lot of Canadians were living there for years. You're coming from the north, so you should be good on 15D, and just make sure to stick to the toll road and only travel during the day. Also, that Nogales, that's also a way to get to Rocky Point, which is a beach, Puerto Penasco, where a lot of people like to go vacation and stuff. So a lot of people, a lot of expats, a lot of tourists travel that road a lot. So you should be good going through Nogales, and you should be good taking 15D. There's no known issues on that stretch between Nogales and that I know of. I'm a little bit more familiar with Tamaulipas, Nuevo León, Coahuila. I'm a little bit more familiar with that because I worked in Texas most of my career, so I'm more well-versed on that. I did work in Phoenix, Arizona for a while, and many of the people that would go to Rocky Point, which is Puerto Penasco, basically would travel that route, and it's pretty a decent route. Just make sure. That's another thing that I also want to tell you on these tips. When I say don't travel at night, keep up with traffic. Actually, I don't know if I gave you the tips, but keep up with traffic. And these are the tips that I always give. Stay in communication, and also always take the toll roads, and never let Google tell you that there's a better route. And if you see a traffic jam, just try to look up ahead to make sure, especially on 57, because traffic jam could mean that they're trying to hold up traffic so that they can, I think the accusations being made was there was some semi-trucks that were parked, that blocked traffic, and then the people were robbing. And actually, they did this in Querétaro too on 57, just outside of Querétaro about a year ago. Is that 15 then Eagle Pass down through Durango to Mazatlan? It probably, actually, Laura Mortick, actually, I'm going to bring hers up here. Is that 15D route safer than Eagle Pass down through Durango to Mazatlan? To be honest with you, probably is. 15D is, Nogales is probably your better bet. If you're able to travel through Arizona, I always tell people to try to stay away from the Texas-Mexico border. The Texas-Mexico border has always had some issues. Is it safer? It, like I said, still do your homework. I would probably cross through Arizona before I would cross, especially if you're going to Mazatlan. Um, there's a lot of people that will, but the thing is that a lot of people now Eagle Pass. It as long the thing with Eagle Pass is Eagle Pass has always been kind of a sleepy town, kind of quiet. It is kind of isolated, but Coahuila doesn't have a lot of problems. Where your problems lie is in Nuevo Leon, which is a little itty bitty strip that goes all the way up to the border, which is where the Columbia Bridge is, and then Tamaulipas. And the problem that you have is you have two. It's a very complex situation, and I already told people this in my last live stream. Is that the situation is that you have the Gulf Cartel, and then you have the remnants in like Reynosa, all those areas up Miguel Alemán, Matamoros. But then you also have what's left of what used to be the Zetas. The Zetas used to actually work for the Gulf Cartel, if you want to know a little bit about cartel history. But they actually separated from each other. And then the Zetas were dissolved because a lot of their leaders were found. So they ended up rebranding themselves and calling themselves the Noreste. And they fight a lot for territory, either east or west. So Coahuila doesn't get hit that much. Even though Noreste controls Coahuila, that territory is not fought for. It's more like the territory that's between the Gulf of Mexico and Laredo that's fought for the most. And then you have one of the major, actually both of them, but one of the other major cartels that's further south that's trying to making incursions into that territory. So that whole Texas, and then if you go up to El Paso, that's Juarez, which is one of the most violent cities in Mexico. So that whole Texas border, if you can stay away from it, to be honest with you, that my advice is to stay away. The whole Texas border is probably the least desirable. Now, do I travel the Texas border? Yeah, I do, but I have to go to McAllen. Actually, I traveled through Reynosa, which is probably, not deemed as, Nuevo Laredo is supposedly deemed even easier to go through. But, like I said, I use my whole protocol of doing stuff. It's out of our way, but if it's safer, we will probably reroute. Laura, you know what? If it's out of your way, I would probably deem both routes pretty good. The only thing that I would look at if you're going to go through, if you ask me which one's safer, yeah, go through Arizona. If it's going to really take you like 10 hours out of your way, just remember when you're planning your trip, just remember that you need to make stops. Okay, so you're going to make stops. And you need to make sure you can only drive during the day, and you're going to end up in a town that you can end up in. If going to Phoenix, to Nogales, maybe even spending the night in Phoenix and then going down to Nogales through Tucson, or Tucson's probably the closer one. You go to Tucson and then go down, and then, it might take an extra day, but just make sure you have it planned to where you're not going to get stuck because, when you say a little bit out of your way, you don't want to end up in the middle of the night, or not in the middle of the night, but it getting dark and you're not to your route, your first destination yet. And gringos are to us. We would rather add a few days to travel for a peace of mind. And that's my, as a matter of fact, let me give you an example. One of my sons, he's a federal probation officer in Laredo, Texas. Monterrey to Laredo is 2 hours. Okay. I will not travel through Nuevo Laredo. I'm going to tell you that right now. I refuse to travel through Nuevo Laredo. I've never been. I never will. I won't go. I'm too familiar with the area. And like I said, I won't go through Nuevo Laredo. Now, if you want to risk going through Nuevo Laredo, that's up to you, but make sure you do. Now, if I had to go through Nuevo Laredo and someone put a gun to my head and said, you have to go through Nuevo Laredo, I will go through Nuevo Laredo, but I'll do my due diligence. But my son lives in Laredo. If I go to visit him, and I have my other sons in San Antonio, what's the fastest route? What's the most convenient route? 2 hours to Nuevo Laredo, visit my son in Laredo, Texas, and another hour and a half to San Antonio. I still travel because I'm more comfortable. Okay, now you got to remember this. Everybody's situation is different. Because if I tell you where I travel through, you're going to be like, yeah, but that place is worse than Nuevo Laredo. Yes, but I grew up down there. And also not only that, but I know which route. I know where to check. I'm going to be a fish out of water if I go through Laredo or Nuevo Laredo. Okay? I'm going to be a fish out of water. Now, if you've been through Nuevo Laredo 15 times, you know the process. There's actually a police escort if you're coming south that'll take you through the town. I mean, there is way, but you got to know what you're doing. Okay, I don't know where to catch the police escort, so I'm going to be like a fish out of water. So I'm going to go through McAllen. I actually go through McAllen. Then I go up from McAllen, which is 2.5 hours to 3 hours to Laredo to go see my son. And then another hour and a half to San Antonio. So that's a perfect example of how I won't cross in Nuevo Laredo. And my trip gets extended by another, I guess it's 2.5 hours to McAllen. So that's half an hour. Another 2.5 hours, that's 3 hours. So my trip, instead of a 2-hour trip straight to Nuevo Laredo to Laredo, turns into a 5-hour trip. So what do I want to do? I'll go 5 hours because I know I can cross in McAllen in a manner that is safe for me, not necessarily for you. Okay? So, because I can tell you, there's people that are from Nuevo Laredo that go through Nuevo Laredo every day. They know Nuevo Laredo like the back of their hands. And if they have to run away, they know where to run away. And so, and then Jay Gomez, thanks for the advice on Nuevo Laredo. I only know Texas crossings. Yeah, Jay Gomez, the thing about Nuevo Laredo right now, and this has been going on for a while now. Actually, it started with the Highway of Death. The Highway of Death was a result of a cartel that's trying to move in that has nothing to do with anything on the border. And one of the ways they operate is people start disappearing. Then there was a lot of, they sent a lot of recourses to the border. Then there was another issue where Nuevo León, the thing about Nuevo León, where Monterrey is in, they actually have a strip apart all the way to the border to the Columbia Bridge. Actually, the Columbia Bridge is considered Nuevo León, is not considered Tamaulipas. And what happened was the governor decided, because Tesla is coming to Monterrey, they even made an agreement with Tesla that we're going to give you special security. We're going to secure, and actually I even did a video I had to take down after several special forces of the state police were ambushed by cartel. And the governor decided, I'm going to make this public. I don't think the cartel liked it, so they wanted to make some examples. So there's a lot, what used to be a very safe trip down the Columbia Bridge, even though it was isolated, and then you still had to go through the Highway 2 where there was a lot of police, where you have run into the corruption. That has been going on for some time, and it just hasn't let up. And just you saw what happened to two travelers in Mexico. One of the things that two travelers in Mexico did is they paid the $2,000, the 2,000 pesos, not the $2,000. They paid the 2,000 pesos, and they got the heck out of there. And probably that's what saved them from further grief. And I'm not saying they were going to get robbed, but that's one of the consequences of not paying the fine sometimes. Not all the times, but sometimes. And the thing about it is that no one's ever been able to prove that the police are in cahoots with the cartel. But how interesting is it? Or it could be that they aren't. But you got to remember that the police sometimes are afraid of the cartel. And it might be just that what happened is that when they show up or they see the police stop somebody on the side of the road, but I highly doubt it. There was an article that I read not too long ago about how the police they would get radio signs to stop certain people or whatever for whatever reason. But maybe they just see the police, but there's never been a link between the police and the bandits. But what normally happens is the police show up, they're talking on the side of the road, and the bandits show up and the police run away. They don't do anything to protect you. So they did the right thing in the sense that they got out of there. Not that they did the right thing in paying the mordida, which is a bribe. Not that they did the right thing in paying the bribe, but they did the right thing in getting the heck out of the situation. One of the things that you want to do when you get stopped in these little towns, especially by the municipal police, even though you want to insist on giving, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to argue, say, give me the ticket, which is probably the right thing to do, because then they'll probably get frustrated and just say, you know what, and forget it. I'm not going to. And some of them won't even say we can pay the fine. In Nuevo Laredo, they're outright, you can pay the fine right here. What they want you to do in most little towns is say, well, what can we do? Or how do I pay the fine? I can't get rid of my life. And then they say, oh, well, here's an alternative. They want to open up the door for you. So if you keep on just saying, give me the ticket, what I would do is normally in these small towns is say, give me the ticket, give them if they want to write the ticket, and here's my driver's license. I have a Texas driver's license that I can give them and never turn around and that type of thing. Or my Monterrey license. I just come back to Monterrey and say I lost it. You're not going to, the thing to do is get out of the situation as quick. No matter what, is get out of the situation as quickly as possible. And look at the way the people, if a police stops you, look around to see if there's cars or trucks parked way down the street or down the highway. Make sure if you need to get out of that situation, get out of the situation. That's what's most important. Your principles of paying a bribe or not paying a bribe or getting, shook down, as you want to say it in English. There's nothing more important. What we used to say in the law enforcement field when we used to do an operation, and we say it in the military too, is let's do this and let's make sure everybody comes home safe. And we do what it takes to make sure that everybody, no case was it. It didn't matter if we had Chapo in our sights. If it was going to mean the injury or the death of one of us, we'd stop. That's just the way it works. Safety is paramount. So I want you guys to remember that. Any other questions about Mexico? And Wilfredo said he's a one-leg kind of guy, but what he does is he travels at night and gets to Laredo in the morning, first light, which is a good thing. If you're going to travel all the way through one leg, do your traveling in the places where you know. Wilfredo probably knows Texas very well. Any other questions? I'm going to continue with my live stream, my normal live stream. What I think we're going to do on Sundays is just keep to regular ask me anything. Like I always say, ask me anything that you want to ask me about moving to Mexico, anything from immigration to, I've had all sorts of questions asked. And whatever you want to ask, I'm gonna keep it at that. And we'll keep it at that. And then if I have any of these special live streams where I want to bring up, I don't know, something that's being asked a lot, something that comes out of my Facebook a lot, if you want to ask me a question that I feel that I'll either do a video or a live stream, I'll even the last time someone asked me a question, I said, hey, I'll do a live stream because it's easier for me to, and actually it was the last time I did an explanation of how things were working here in Mexico as far as safety. If you want me to answer that question, I'll do a live stream apart from my Sundays. Now some Sundays I won't do it because I'm traveling or I'm doing something, but We'll stick to that. I'm still working on the house video. I already told you I broke it down into two. I already have all my footage. I had my footage in 50 million places. So have patience with me because I'm going to do two separate videos. And like I said, the beginning, I have drone footage of everything from the pure dirt, the land, all the way to the different stages of the house. And then I do a final walkthrough, which will be my last video, my second video. I also am I have another video in the pipeline that I'm not going to release today or within the next 2 days about digital nomads. Actually, there's been news that digital nomads are going to be taxed here in Mexico, actually Mexico City, but it may lead to something more. So I'm going to give you the scoop on that. So stay tuned for that video, and we'll see you on the next live stream. And thank you guys for everything. And Laura did say that if we go through Eagle Pass, we plan on 6 or 7 hour days and overnight. Yeah, you're pretty good. What you're doing if you go through Eagle Pass. And if you go through Nogales, that's also a good route too. Any other questions before I sign off? We went over my hour that I like to go. I don't like to go over an hour, but and thank you guys. Thanks for supporting me. I really do appreciate it. I think I get a chance to say that a little bit more on my live stream. And you know, I'm here for you guys. I'm here to build a community. I have the resources for you guys to try to help each other out. Like I want to help everybody out. And like I said, let's keep it real. There's nothing wrong with telling the truth. And, you know, so be it. If I have to tell the truth, I'm going to tell the truth. And that's the way it is. And all those people that are claiming to tell the truth, but they're telling you what you want to hear, that's not the truth. That's what you want to hear. So, you know, YouTube's a great resource. Facebook is a great resource. But remember, like I said, when you go to a Facebook group, analyze. It's about having common sense. When you listen to a YouTuber, analyze what the YouTuber is telling you. Have common sense. Also look at their motivation. There's nothing wrong, like I said, with YouTubers trying to make money. There's people that have a business. There's Facebook groups that are out there, that have businesses, and their Facebook group is to promote their business. A lot of people don't realize that, but they start to realize it after every single answer is, excuse me, contact my business, contact my business, contact my business. My business is the greatest. Then you find out, well, wait a second, this Facebook group is for a business and not to help us out. Or maybe it is to help you out because maybe they have the answers. So that's the thing. Make sure you have some common sense and don't let anybody give you a false sense of security. And I'm going to leave you with this last thing that I've already said, and I'm going to repeat it again. Even though I sound like a broken record. Is Mexico dangerous? Yes. Is the United States dangerous? Yes. Is Canada dangerous? Yes. Is Colombia dangerous? Yes. Is Europe dangerous? Yes. But can you live safely in all of those countries without a problem and without any issues? Yes, you can. And that decision is up to you, my friends. And as I always say, until next time, stay safe and stay informed. Thanks for stopping by.